Lisa had always been the kind of person who could find beauty in ordinary things. A shadow on a wall, the way light hit a coffee cup in the morning, the wrinkles on her grandmother's hands. She worked as a graphic designer during the day, creating logos and advertisements for small businesses. But at night, after dinner was done and the dishes were washed, she'd pull out her watercolors and paint. Her apartment walls were covered with her work. Sunset landscapes, portraits of people she'd seen on the street. Abstract pieces that somehow captured feelings she couldn't put into words. Her daughter Mia loved watching her paint. The little girl would sit cross-legged on the floor, her chin resting on her hands, completely mesmerized by how her mother could turn blank paper into something magical. Mia was 7 years old and full of energy. She played soccer every weekend, her ponytail bouncing as she ran across the field. She laughed too loud, asked too many questions, and had a smile that could light up a room. Lisa's husband worked at a warehouse, long shifts that left him tired but grateful for steady work. They weren't rich, but they were happy. They had enough. Everything changed on a Tuesday afternoon in October. Lisa was at work when her phone rang. It was Mia's coach. Her daughter had collapsed during practice. Not tripped, not fallen, collapsed. The ambulance was already there. Lisa's hands shook so badly she could barely grab her keys. The drive to the hospital was a blur of red lights and prayers she didn't know she remembered. When she got there, Mia was awake, but pale. So pale. The doctors ran tests, blood work, scans, more blood work. The words they used were long and complicated, but the message was clear enough. Something was very wrong. 3 days later, they had a diagnosis: acute lymphoblastic leukemia. Cancer. Her 7-year-old daughter had cancer. Lisa heard the doctor's voice like it was coming from underwater. Treatment protocol, chemotherapy, survival rates, hospital stays. The doctor was kind, even hopeful. Childhood leukemia was treatable, he said. The cure rates were good, but it would be a long road. 2 to 3 years of treatment, multiple phases. Some of it could be done at home, but much of it required hospital visits. The children's hospital was 2 hours away. They'd need to make that drive several times a week, at least at first. Lisa nodded, trying to absorb everything. Her husband held Mia's hand. Their daughter looked small in the hospital bed, confused about why everyone suddenly seemed so scared. Then came the financial conversation. A different person in a different office with a computer screen full of numbers. Insurance would cover a lot, but not everything. There were co-pays, deductibles. Some of the medications Mia needed weren't fully covered. The experimental drug that could improve her odds cost extra. There were travel expenses to consider. Maybe temporary housing near the hospital during intensive treatment phases. Lisa looked at the estimated costs and felt her stomach drop. Even with insurance, they were looking at tens of thousands of dollars. Maybe more. Her husband picked up extra shifts, started working 6 days a week instead of 5, sometimes 7. Lisa tried to work from home when Mia was sick, which was often now. The chemo made her daughter tired and nauseous. Some days Mia couldn't keep food down. Other days, she'd have good moments where she'd almost seem like her old self. And Lisa would let herself hope that maybe this wasn't as bad as it seemed. But the bills kept coming. Medical bills, pharmacy bills, bills for treatments Lisa couldn't even pronounce. They arrived in white envelopes that she started to dread. She'd open them at the kitchen table late at night after Mia was asleep, and try to figure out which ones to pay first, which ones could wait, which ones she could maybe negotiate down. They burned through their savings in the first 2 months. The small emergency fund they'd built up over years gone. They cut expenses everywhere they could. No more eating out. No new clothes. They canceled streaming services and magazine subscriptions. Lisa started buying generic brands at the grocery store, clipping coupons, planning meals around what was on sale. It still wasn't enough. Her husband was working himself to exhaustion, leaving before sunrise and coming home after dark. Lisa could see the worry in his eyes, the way his shoulders stayed tense all the time now. They didn't talk about it much. What was there to say? They'd do whatever it took, sell whatever they had to sell. But they were running out of options. One night, Lisa couldn't sleep. She walked through their apartment in the dark, ending up in the hallway where her paintings hung. 20 years of work lined those walls, pieces she'd created when she was happy, when she was sad, when she was searching for something she couldn't name. Each painting held a memory, a moment, a piece of her heart. She stood there for a long time looking at them in the dim light from the street lamp outside. These paintings had never been about money. She'd sold a few over the years, mostly to friends. A gallery owner had once told her she could probably get good prices if she really tried, but Lisa had never been comfortable promoting herself. The paintings were personal, private. They were hers. But Mia was more important than any painting. More important than pride or sentiment or the art that had once felt like the most important thing in her world. Lisa made coffee and sat at the kitchen table as the sun came up. She made a list of which paintings she could part with. Not all of them. She couldn't bear to sell all of them, but enough. Maybe enough to make a dent in what they owed. Maybe enough to pay for the next round of treatment. Maybe enough to buy them a little time, a little breathing room, a little hope. She knew what they were worth to her. Everything. But she also knew what they might be worth to someone else. Probably not much. She wasn't famous. Wasn't trained in some fancy art school. She was just a mom who painted in her spare time. By the time her husband woke up, Lisa had already started taking photos of the paintings with her phone. The light wasn't great, but it would have to do. She'd post them online somewhere. Maybe someone would want them. Maybe someone would understand that these weren't just paintings. They were hope. They were her daughter's future. They were everything she had left to give. Lisa spent the whole morning taking photos of her paintings. The lighting was terrible. Her hands kept shaking. She'd take a picture, look at it, delete it, and try again. How do you photograph something that means everything to you? How do you make someone else see what you see? She finally got decent shots of 20 pieces. Her best work. The painting of the desert at sunset that she'd done on their anniversary trip 5 years ago. The abstract piece in blues and grays that she'd painted the week after her father died. The portrait of an elderly woman she'd seen at a bus stop, whose eyes held a lifetime of stories. Each one had a memory attached. Each one hurt to let go. Now came the hard part. Writing the post. Lisa opened her laptop and stared at the blank screen. What was she supposed to say? How much should she share? She typed and deleted a dozen different versions. Some were too detailed, too personal. Others felt like begging. She didn't want to beg. She just needed help. Finally, she kept it simple. Art for sale. Original watercolor paintings. $50 to $150 each. Need funds for my daughter's medical treatment, that was it. No sob story, no dramatic details. Just the facts. She attached the photos and hovered her mouse over the post button for a full minute before clicking it. Then she closed the laptop and tried not to think about it. The response came faster than she expected. Within an hour, her phone started buzzing. She'd posted in a local community group. The kind where people usually sold old furniture and asked for restaurant recommendations. The first few comments were prayers and heart emojis. Sending love. Praying for your daughter. Stay strong, Mama. Lisa appreciated them, but prayers didn't pay medical bills. She needed buyers. Then real inquiries started coming in. A woman asked about the sunset painting. A college student wanted to know if the abstract pieces were still available. Someone asked if she could do custom work. Lisa answered each message carefully, professionally, trying to sound like someone who sold art all the time instead of someone who was terrified and desperate. The prices she'd listed were low. She knew that. A gallery owner had once told her she could easily get $400 or $500 for her larger pieces, maybe more. But she didn't have time for galleries and proper pricing. She needed quick sales. She needed cash now. Besides, she thought, who was she to charge that much? She wasn't a real artist, just someone who painted at night after the dishes were done. 3 days passed. She sold 4 paintings. $270 total. It helped, but it wasn't nearly enough. The latest hospital bill sitting on her kitchen counter was for $8,000. For 1 round of treatment. There would be more bills. So many more. Then on Friday evening, a different kind of message came through. A man named Tom asked if he could see the paintings in person. He said he lived across town and could come by that weekend if she was comfortable with it. Something about the message felt different, more serious. Lisa checked his profile. Normal-looking guy, middle-aged. His page showed pictures of hiking trips and a golden retriever. He didn't look like a scammer or a creep. She talked it over with her husband that night. They needed the money. But was it safe to have a stranger come to their home? Her husband said he'd be there the whole time. They'd keep it brief and professional. If anything felt wrong, they'd end it immediately. Lisa messaged Tom back and said Saturday afternoon would work. She spent all of Saturday morning in a panic. She cleaned the apartment twice, arranged and rearranged the paintings. Mia was having a good day, which was both a blessing and a worry. Lisa didn't want this stranger seeing her daughter sick, but she also didn't want to hide her. This was their life now. This was why she was selling her art. Tom arrived exactly on time. Lisa watched from the window as he parked his car, a simple sedan, nothing fancy. He was dressed casually in jeans and a regular shirt. He looked, for lack of a better word, normal. Not rich, not poor, just a regular person. Her husband answered the door. They shook hands. Tom was polite, soft-spoken. He wiped his feet on the mat even though it wasn't raining. Small things, but Lisa noticed. She'd gotten good at reading people these past few months. You learn to notice kindness in hospitals and waiting rooms full of scared parents. She showed him the paintings. They were spread all over the living room now. Some propped against the couch. Others hung temporarily on walls. A few laid out on the dining table. Her entire creative life on display for a stranger to judge. Tom didn't rush. That was the first thing that surprised her. He looked at each painting carefully. Really looked. He'd lean in close, studying brushstrokes, then step back to see the whole piece. He asked questions. What inspired this one? What technique did she use for the sky? How long had she been painting? Lisa found herself relaxing a little, talking about her art the way she used to, back before every conversation in her life became about blood counts and treatment protocols and insurance claims. For 20 minutes, she was just an artist showing her work, not a desperate mother selling her possessions. Mia wandered in from her bedroom. She was wearing her favorite purple beanie, the soft one that didn't irritate her scalp. Her hair had started falling out 2 weeks ago. She'd cried for hours, and Lisa had cried with her. And then they'd gone shopping for fun hats together, making the best of it. Tom smiled at Mia. Not the weird, overly cheerful smile adults sometimes gave sick kids. Just a normal, friendly smile. Hey there. Are you an artist too? Mia nodded shyly and pointed to the refrigerator, where her crayon drawings were stuck with magnets, stick figures and rainbows, and a picture of their family with a dog they didn't actually have. Tom walked over and studied them with the same serious attention he'd given Lisa's paintings. This one's really good. I like how you made the sun smile. Mia beamed. The sun is always happy because it gets to make everything warm. That's a nice way to think about it, Tom said. Then he turned back to Lisa and her husband. His expression changed, became more serious.
Can I ask you something?
Lisa tensed. Here it comes, she thought. The pity. The awkward questions about her daughter's illness. The offers of prayer instead of payment. But Tom surprised her. These prices you listed online, is that really what you want for them? Because I've been to a lot of galleries and your work is better than a lot of what I've seen selling for 10 times that much. Lisa didn't know what to say. Her husband jumped in. We're just trying to be reasonable. We need quick sales, Tom nodded slowly. He walked around the room one more time, looking at all 20 paintings again. Then he asked a question that made Lisa's heart stop. How much do you actually need? The question hung in the air like smoke. How much do you actually need? Lisa looked at her husband. He looked back at her. They'd been married for 10 years, and sometimes they could have whole conversations without saying a word. This was one of those times. His eyes asked, should we tell him? Her eyes answered, I don't know. It felt wrong somehow. Too personal. Too vulnerable. You don't tell strangers about the mountain of bills on your kitchen table, the ones you've organized by due date, trying to figure out which companies will wait longest before sending you to collections. You don't talk about lying awake at 3 a.m. doing math in your head, calculating how many extra shifts your husband would need to work, how many paintings you'd need to sell, and realizing the numbers never quite add up. Tom must have seen the hesitation on their faces. I'm sorry, he said quickly. That was too forward. I just meant, I've been where you are. Different situation, but I understand medical debt. I know how it feels. Something about the way he said it made Lisa believe him. This wasn't pity. It was recognition, like he'd stood in the same dark place they were standing now. We owe about $30,000, her husband said quietly. That's just what's outstanding right now. There's more coming. Her treatment is going to last years. Lisa wanted to add more context. Explain that they had insurance, but it didn't cover everything. that they'd already burned through their savings, that they weren't the kind of people who asked for help. But the words stuck in her throat. Tom nodded. He walked over to the dining table where several paintings were laid out. He picked up the desert sunset piece, the one Lisa had painted on their anniversary, held it up to the light from the window. "This is extraordinary," he said. "The way you captured the color gradient here. And this." He pointed to a small detail in the corner, a tiny cactus flower that most people never even noticed. "This is the kind of thing that separates good art from great art. The details that don't demand attention but reward it." Lisa felt tears prick her eyes. She'd spent 6 hours on that painting, 3 hours just on the sky alone, layering colors until she got it exactly right. Her husband had fallen asleep on the couch while she worked. She'd painted through the night because she couldn't stop, couldn't rest until it matched the image in her head. "I'd like to buy all 20 pieces," Tom said. Lisa's heart jumped. 20 paintings at her listed prices would be about $2,000. It was more than she'd hoped to make in one sale. It would help. Not enough, but it would help. Tom pulled out his phone and opened his banking app. "I'm going to transfer $15,000 to you right now. If you're comfortable giving me your account information." The room went silent. Even Mia, who'd been coloring at the coffee table, looked up. "I'm sorry," Lisa said, because she must have heard wrong. "Did you say 15,000? "Yes, for all 20 paintings. I think that's fair value. Actually, probably still under what you could get. But it's what I can do comfortably right now." Lisa's legs went weak. She sat down hard on the arm of the couch. Her husband just stood there frozen, like his brain had stopped processing information. "We can't," Lisa whispered. That's too much. Way too much. I only asked for 50 to 150 per painting." "I know what you asked for," Tom said gently, "but I also know what they're worth. Look, I'm not trying to be some kind of hero here. I'm not trying to make you feel like you owe me anything. This is a fair transaction. You have something valuable. I want to buy it. That's how this works. But why?" her husband asked. His voice cracked a little. "Why would you do this?" Tom was quiet for a moment. He looked at Mia, who was watching the adults with big, curious eyes. Then he looked back at Lisa and her husband. 3 years ago, I sold my business, a tech company I'd started in my garage. Nothing huge, but it did well enough that when a bigger company wanted to buy it, I said yes. I made good money from that sale. Not rich, but comfortable. Enough that I don't have to worry anymore." He paused, choosing his words carefully. "My daughter died when she was 9. Different kind of cancer than your daughter has. This was 15 years ago, before I had the business, before I had any money. We fought so hard, did everything we could, but back then the treatments weren't as good, and we couldn't afford some of the experimental options that might have helped. We were drowning in bills just like you are now." Lisa's hand flew to her mouth. "I'm so sorry." "Thank you," Tom said. "It was a long time ago, but you never really get over it. You just learn to live with it. After I sold the company, I thought a lot about what to do with the money. I've got a good life. I don't need much, but I remembered what it felt like to be desperate, to be willing to do anything, sell anything, sacrifice anything for your child." He gestured around at the paintings. "When I saw your post, something about it got to me. You weren't being dramatic. You weren't asking for handouts. You were just trying to sell your work, trying to maintain your dignity while your world is falling apart. I respected that." Lisa was crying now. Not quiet tears, but full sobs that shook her shoulders. Her husband moved to her side, his own eyes wet. "I can't take this," Lisa said between sobs. "It's too much. You don't even know us." "I know enough," Tom said. "I know you're good people in a bad situation. I know your art is beautiful and worth paying for. And I know that if someone had done this for me 15 years ago, if someone had given me the chance to try everything possible to save my daughter, I would have taken it. So please let me do this." Mia got up from the coffee table and walked over to her mother. She didn't fully understand what was happening, but she understood that her mom was crying and that this man was somehow making everything better. She hugged Lisa's leg. "It's okay, Mommy," Mia said softly. "The nice man likes your paintings." Tom smiled, though his eyes were shiny too. "I really do. Your mom is very talented." Lisa looked at her husband. He nodded. What else could they do? Pride was a luxury they couldn't afford, not when their daughter's life hung in the balance. "Okay," Lisa whispered. "Okay, thank you. Thank you so much." She gave Tom her bank account information with shaking hands. He transferred the money right there, showing her his phone screen as proof. $15,000. Just like that. The pending transaction showed up in her banking app seconds later. It felt unreal. Like a dream. Like one of those stories you see on the news and think, that would never happen to me. But it was happening. Right now. In their small apartment with her, paintings scattered around and her daughter watching. And this stranger who understood grief, offering them something more precious than money, was offering them hope. Tom helped them pack up the paintings. He was careful with each one, wrapping them in the old blankets Lisa provided, making sure the corners were protected. Her husband carried them out to Tom's car while Lisa just stood in the living room, staring at the now empty walls. The apartment looked so bare, like something vital had been removed. For years, those paintings had been the first thing she saw every morning and the last thing she saw every night. They'd been her companions, her therapy, her proof that she could create something beautiful in a world that often felt harsh and complicated. Now they were gone. And somehow that felt both devastating and freeing at the same time. Before Tom left, he asked Lisa something unexpected. "Would you mind if I shared your story? Not your name or anything personal. Just what happened here today. I think people need to hear stories like this." Lisa hesitated. She wasn't sure she wanted to be a story. Some inspirational post that people would read, feel good about for 30 seconds, and then scroll past. But Tom wasn't pushy about it. He just said it might help others, might encourage people to look for ways they could help someone in their own community. "Okay," Lisa finally agreed. "If you think it would do some good," Tom smiled. "I do, and Lisa, your daughter is lucky to have you. Both of you." He nodded at her husband. "You're fighting hard for her. That matters more than you know." After he left, Lisa and her husband just sat on the couch for a long time, not talking. Mia had gone back to her coloring, humming a song from one of her favorite cartoons. The sound of her voice, happy and alive, was the most beautiful thing Lisa had ever heard. That night, they paid off the most urgent bills. The ones marked final notice. The ones threatening collections. Lisa logged into each account, entered payment information, and watched the balances drop to zero. It should have felt good. It did feel good. But it also felt terrifying because she knew this was temporary relief. There would be more bills. Always more bills. Still, for tonight, they could breathe. For tonight, they had a little space between them and disaster. The next morning, Lisa's phone started buzzing. At first, she thought something was wrong. Too many notifications at once usually meant bad news. But these weren't bad. They were messages from people she didn't know. Dozens of them. Then hundreds Tom had posted about what happened. Not on the local community page, but on his personal social media. And apparently, he had a lot of followers. The post was simple. He'd written about meeting an artist selling her work to pay for her daughter's medical treatment. He'd included photos of a few paintings with Lisa's permission. He didn't use her name or location. Just told the story of what he'd witnessed and why it had moved him. The post had gone viral. People were sharing it everywhere. And more importantly, people were asking about her art. Is she taking commissions? Where can I buy her work? Does she have more paintings available? Can someone connect me with this artist? Lisa stared at her phone in disbelief. Her husband looked over her shoulder, reading the comments. "You need to respond to these," he said. "People want to buy your art." "I don't have any art left," Lisa said. Tom bought everything. So make more. It sounded so simple when he said it like that. Just make more. But Lisa hadn't painted anything new in months. Since Mia got sick, she hadn't touched a brush except to pack them away. She'd been too tired, too stressed, too consumed by fear to create anything. But people were waiting. People wanted her work. Not because they felt sorry for her. Because they actually liked what she made. That afternoon, while Mia napped, Lisa set up her painting supplies for the first time in months. She put on her old paint-stained shirt, mixed her colors, stared at the blank paper. Nothing came. Her mind was empty. Or maybe too full. She couldn't tell anymore. She almost gave up. Almost packed everything away again. But then she heard Mia cough in the other room. That wet, rattling cough that had become so familiar. The cough that reminded her why she was doing any of this. Lisa dipped her brush in blue paint and started. She didn't think about technique or composition or whether anyone would like it. She just painted. She painted the hospital waiting room where they'd spent so many hours. The uncomfortable chairs. The fluorescent lights. The coffee machine that never worked right. She painted the other parents she'd met there, their faces etched with the same worry she carried. It wasn't pretty. It wasn't the kind of thing people usually wanted to hang in their homes, but it was honest. It was real. It was what her life looked like right now. She posted a photo of it online with a simple message. Back to painting. This one's called Waiting Room. Taking commissions for original watercolors. Proceeds go toward my daughter's ongoing medical treatment. The response was immediate. 20 people wanted that painting. 50 people wanted commissions. A gallery owner in another state messaged asking if she'd be interested in a show. An art supply company offered to send her free materials. A blogger wanted to interview her. It was overwhelming. Beautiful and terrifying and completely overwhelming. Over the next few weeks, Lisa painted every spare moment she had. Between hospital visits and insurance calls and the exhausting routine of caring for a sick child, she painted. She painted at midnight when everyone else was asleep. She painted in the early morning before the sun came up. She painted in the hospital cafeteria while waiting for Mia's treatment to finish. And people bought everything she made. She started pricing her work properly this time. Not undervaluing herself. Not selling herself short. If people wanted to pay $300 for a painting, she let them. If they wanted to pay $500, she didn't argue. The money helped. It really helped. But something else was happening too. Something she hadn't expected. Painting was saving her in ways that had nothing to do with money. It was giving her back a piece of herself that she'd lost. Reminding her that she was more than just Mia's mom. More than just a person drowning in medical debt. She was still an artist. She was still someone who could create beauty. People started recognizing her work. A coffee shop wanted to display her paintings. A local newspaper ran a story about her. Art students messaged her asking for advice. Other parents dealing with medical debt reached out, asking how she'd managed to turn her situation into something positive. Lisa didn't have all the answers. Most days she was still just trying to survive, still just trying to make it to the next treatment, the next appointment, the next day. But now she had this thing that was hers, this proof that even in the darkest times there was still light if you looked for it. Tom checked in every few weeks. Not intrusive, just a simple message. How's your daughter doing? How's the art going? He'd bought those 20 paintings and hung them in his home office. Sent her photos. Told her he looked at them every day and they made him happy. One afternoon, Lisa got a message from a woman named Beth. She was a nurse at the children's hospital. She'd seen Lisa's story online and had been following her journey. Beth wanted to commission a painting of the pediatric oncology ward. Not the medical equipment or the scary parts, but the little moments of joy. The nurses singing to the kids. The parents reading bedtime stories. The small victories that happened every day in that place. Lisa said yes immediately. She knew that ward. Knew every corner of it. She'd spent so much time there that the nurses knew her coffee order. She knew which chairs were most comfortable for sleeping. Knew which windows got the best light. She painted it from memory. And when she was done, she realized something. This painting wasn't sad. Despite everything, despite the fear and the pain and the uncertainty, it wasn't sad. It was full of love. Full of people fighting. Full of hope that refused to die. Beth loved it. She hung it in the family waiting room at the hospital, where other scared parents could see it, where they could remember that they weren't alone. 2 years passed. Not quickly, not easily, but they passed. Mia's treatment continued with its ups and downs. Some months were good. She'd have energy. Her color would come back and she'd almost seem like her old self. Those were the days Lisa held on to. The days that made everything else bearable. Other months were brutal. The chemo would hit her hard. She'd be too weak to get out of bed, too sick to eat, too tired to even watch her favorite cartoons. Lisa painted through all of it. She painted on the good days and the bad days. She painted in the hospital room while Mia slept. She painted at home while her husband worked. She painted because she had to, because people were counting on her, because the bills never stopped coming, but also because somewhere along the way, painting had become her lifeline again. The commissions kept coming, more than she could handle sometimes. She had to start a waiting list, had to learn to say no, which was hard for someone who'd spent so long just trying to survive. A local gallery offered her a permanent spot. Her paintings sold before they even made it onto the walls. The money helped more than she could ever express. It didn't solve everything, Medical debt is a beast that doesn't die easily. But it meant they could pay for the treatments Mia needed without lying awake at night, wondering which bill to ignore. It meant her husband could cut back to 5 days a week instead of 7. It meant they could breathe. But the money wasn't the biggest change. The biggest change was harder to explain. Lisa had spent so many months feeling powerless, feeling like life was just something that happened to her, something she had to endure. The diagnosis, the bills, the fear, all of it felt like a wave that kept crashing over her, pushing her under, never giving her a chance to catch her breath. Painting gave her back some power. Not over the cancer. She couldn't control that. But over her own story, over how she responded to the nightmare she was living. She was creating something, contributing something. She wasn't just a victim of circumstances anymore. She was still fighting, still moving forward, still making beautiful things in the middle of the chaos. Other parents in the oncology ward started asking her about her art. Some wanted to buy paintings. Others just wanted to talk, wanted to know how she'd found a way to do something other than just survive. Lisa didn't have profound answers. She'd just tell them the truth. She painted because she had to, because it was either create something or crumble completely. A few of those parents started painting too. Nothing serious, just small watercolors in the family waiting room. The nurses didn't mind. They said it was good for people to have something to do other than worry. Lisa would give tips when asked. Show them how to blend colors, how to fix mistakes, how to turn a blank piece of paper into something that meant something. One day, a father painting in the waiting room told Lisa that she'd saved his life. Not literally, but in the way that mattered. He'd been drowning in despair, watching his son suffer, feeling helpless. Then he'd seen Lisa painting in that same waiting room months ago, watched her create something beautiful while her daughter was getting chemo down the hall. It had given him permission to be something other than just a terrified parent. He could be a person who painted, who created, who still found moments of peace even in hell. Lisa cried when he told her that. She'd been so focused on her own survival that she hadn't realized other people were watching, learning from her, taking strength from her example. Tom still checked in regularly. They'd become friends in that strange way people do when they share something profound. He came by every few months to see how Mia was doing, brought books for her to read, never made a big deal about what he'd done, never acted like he was owed anything, just showed up as a friend. One visit, he brought someone with him, a young woman about Lisa's age. Her name was Rachel, and she'd just started treatment for breast cancer. She was terrified, not just of the cancer, but of the bills, of losing everything she'd worked for, of asking for help. Tom thought talking to Lisa might help. So they sat in Lisa's living room drinking tea, and Lisa told her story. All of it, the desperation, the decision to sell her art, the stranger who'd seen her worth when she couldn't see it herself, the slow rebuilding of her life and her identity. Rachel cried. Then she asked if Lisa would teach her to paint. She'd always wanted to learn, but never made time for it. Now, facing her own mortality, she didn't want to waste any more time on things that didn't matter. Lisa said yes. Of course she said yes. So Rachel started coming over once a week. They'd paint together while Mia played nearby. Sometimes they'd talk about cancer and treatments and the horror of medical bills. Other times they'd just paint in comfortable silence, creating beauty because they could, because they were still